Second.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Okay, would you remake that motion for the record?
Certainly. I'll make a motion to approve the January 14th, 2025 EDC Board meeting minutes.
Second?
Bondall, second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, vote to my left.
Alexander, yes.
Rankin, yes.
Key, yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Motion passes. January 14th, 2025 EDC Board meeting minutes are added to the permanent record of this body. Item number 5, consider and take action to approve the November 2024 EDC financials. We have a presentation from Dr. Smith.
Short and sweet. Me and Ms. Rankin met today and went over both November and December. If you remember, we tabled November because we had a few questions. One of them is that number that is highlighted in yellow. They come to me and the print is about this big and I had 688 instead of 668. So that threw the numbers off a little bit. So these are the November financials. That number has been amended and we went through it today. And then what you see at the bottom, those are our bank balances as of month end for November. And then what you see at the bottom is the budget report, the total income and the total expenses and the net income from October 1st to November the 30th.
Any further questions or statements?
Would you just point out those professional fees for me?
Was that November or December when the professional fees were on there? I don't remember, Linda. We have some additional professional fees, so we budgeted $10,000 on either November or December financials. There are some fees, and the professional fees, we budgeted $10,000 for Retail Coach. You'll see that it's about 14 grand, and that has to do with us conducting those surveys of the property, both at the corner of Luther and Church, the surveys of the right-of-way that this board has agreed to dedicate to the city for the Luther Lane extension, and then for the piece of property that we're discussing tonight.
And then the placer being over budget right now?
Yeah, I need to look at that. They may have, I thought we had budgeted, I knew Placer was $14,000, and so when Linda and I visited today, I will call the accountant tomorrow and make sure she got the right numbers into the actual budget so that your budget report is correct. We budgeted enough for Placer, so I'm not sure how we ended up with less than that when I actually did the budget. So we'll verify that with the accountant first thing in the morning. We're in the process of an accountant changeover. Our accountant, Angela Marcellus, had a death in her immediate family. Her husband passed away, and she has taken a light leave of absence from Teresa Cryer, CPA. But we do have somebody that has stepped in and helped us, and I believe she'll be out for about 90 days. But we have a replacement in place, and we're getting things taken care of again.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Okay, as to the November 2024 EDC financials only, do I have a motion?
I make a motion we consider and take action to approve the November 2024 EDC financials as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Mr. Bond, a second by Ms. Rankin. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, vote to my left.
Alexander, yes.
Rankin, yes.
Key, yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Motion passes. 2024 November EDC financials are now a permanent part of our record. Item number 6, consider and take action to approve the December 2024 EDC financials. Dr. Smith?
Here as well, you see the bank balance month-end report. You also see the summary, the total income. The net other income is from the sale of the property on Church Street, less the initial cost of the property that was being carried on the books. So that's what that 118,273 is. And then your total expenses, so our net income for the month was 217, and you can see there asterisked what the sale of the property on Church Street was. So, and I'm not sure if those items we talked about earlier are in your November or in your December. Linda and I went over both of them today, and I'm not sure, but we are good to go moving forward going into January, rounding out that first quarter.
So this has been reviewed by our treasurer, correct?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I need to ask for a motion then, for us to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 2024 EDC financials.
Have a motion by Ms. Rankin, second by
I'll second.
Mr. Damiano. No further questions or concerns? A vote to my left.
Alexander, yes.
Rankin, yes.
Key, yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Motion carries. December 2024 EDC financials are a permanent part of this board's records. Item number 7, update from the Economic Development Director.
So several of you had asked to have this added to the agenda, so we have added it. I will tell you what you see on your agenda every month is the majority of what I have done for that month. As Stephen and I create that, we're looking at, this month, we're looking at the defaults from Slap and Good and GBC Medical, the financials, the the First Amendment to the amended and restated performance agreement, the appraisal, the potential appraisal of the property that is behind the park and the discussion surrounding that. In addition to that, I have, there is a letter of interest on the old Whataburger building, and I have had some preliminary, I cannot tell you who, but I have had some preliminary conversations with them. I have met with 3 other businesses that either have in grant applications or small business or large business or are bringing those in. I had lunch with one yesterday that's looking at coming to Gun Barrel. So that's a lot of what I do during the month. In addition to that, Stephen and I have been going through every single performance agreement of people that have current loans, seeing what their compliance requirements were. Most of them either have annual or one-time compliance agreements, IRS forms, and Texas Workforce Commission forms. So we're getting ready to send everyone with a loan a letter asking them to catch those up for us, do all their compliance reporting that they should have been doing that it doesn't appear the majority have done since their loans were issued. So we've really been trying to get that brought up to speed and get it all in one place. So all of the loan documents are tracked in one place.
Any other questions for Dr. Smith? Dr. Smith, thank you for the update. Appreciate it very
I'm
much.
just going to stand here.
Item number 8, consider and take action on the loan default of Slap and Good Barbecue in Gun Barrel City, Texas.
So as the EDC board knows, we sent the default letter on January the 16th for final default for both Slap and Good and the next business we will talk about. The process kind of looks like this going forward. Tonight, we will have a very preliminary discussion, provided we do not hear from one of those 2 businesses in the next couple days. This will allow us to get this item on our February agenda so we can move the process forward. The full amount in default from Slap and Good is $21,773.35. On February the 17th, which should be Monday, the 17th is Monday, their expiration will happen for their right to cure. They have 30 days from the day we send them the letter. So their right to cure will expire. And then provided you all take action tonight, we will take that to City Council on our February 25th meeting. By then, their right to cure will have, if for some reason somebody shows up with their payment, then we will bring that back to you for discussion, but I don't foresee that happening. And I will talk a little bit about their financials if you'll give me a second. We have a couple of options. We can partner with our EDC attorney. We talked about this at the last meeting. We can file a lawsuit on Slap and Good to attempt to collect that, take them to court to attempt to collect that $21,773.35. That will cost us somewhere on the low end, around $10,000, could cost us up to as much as $20,000, based on how many times we have to go to court, how many letters he's sending, that type of thing. The second option we have, so that's option number 1, is to make a motion to file the lawsuit on the bad debt. and attempt to collect it. It'll probably require mediation. We will go and talk to them, that kind of thing. Number 2 option is to forgive the debt. If we do that, then we work with our accountant at the end of the year to file a 1099-C for 2025. That is, for all practical purposes, a record of cancellation of debt, and it requires the business to then show that back due amount that they have not paid us as income when they file their taxes. The third option, and I talked with the president and the vice president extensively about this, is to partner with a collection agency. There aren't a lot of agencies out there anymore. You used to be able as a business just to sell your debt, and they would buy it for pennies on the dollar, and then they would go worry about it, right? They would collect it, they would not collect it. If they do that version, we can't file the 1099-C because we have, for all practical purposes, accepted whatever that dollar amount is in exchange for the loan. There are not many companies out there that do that anymore. I couldn't find one, and I called 3 or 4. So there is an agency that I have worked with in the past. It's in Dallas. Basically, they do this on a contingency basis. We sign a contract with them. There's no cost to us. We turn the debt over to them. We turn the loan paperwork over to them, and they proceed to try to either collect it or settle or mediate, and then they take a percentage. In the case of the company I've worked with, it's about 30%, and that's pretty average. This is a great company in Dallas, downtown Dallas, called Southwest Collections. But that's kind of their process and what they do. But it's all on contingency, so it doesn't cost us anything. One thing that we might have the potential to do is hand this over if they have 0 luck, then ask for it back. Keith, I kept saying 10 months. I only want him to have the loan for 10 months. And Keith said, Angie, where the heck did you get 10 months? Because in December, I want us to be able to file a 1099 if they haven't settled or if they're not steady making payments. Can you go to the next slide, please? So a brief update on Slap and Good, and I don't want anybody to think that we don't take what we're doing very, very seriously, right? This is a business in our community that is still open. But we have loaned them money, and they have made little to no attempt to reimburse us for that loan. So they have made a total of $7,600 in payments. The business is open to the public, both in GBC and in Kemp. They made pretty steady payments from October 1st of 2020, when is about when the loan was issued, until September 3rd of 2022. Payments weren't necessarily always on time, but they made payments almost every month.
Can you repeat how much they paid so far?
$7,600, $7,600.
Thank you. I didn't.
No, it's okay. And
My
keep in
screen's
mind,
not
that's
working.
also, I know your screen's not working. That's the original loan amount plus their interest, because it accrues every single month. And so their payments aren't much. They are, one of you may have it, but it's a little over $250 a month or so. In April of 2022 and in December of 2022, they did make an extra payment. They had skipped some payments in there, and so they made some attempt to catch up by making like a double payment, or maybe making like $1,000 plus the regular payment. In November of 2022, and then from, I think in December, the reason they made the extra payment is they skipped the November payment. They didn't make it. So when they made the payment in December, they paid extra. Then from January 23 to July the 23, we didn't get any payment or any correspondence from them. And July the 23 was June 2023 was the last payment we have seen from them. And we have, since I started in October of 2023, on numerous occasions attempted to reach out to the owners. I sent a very sweet letter when I first started. Hey, I'm the new director. I just want to get to know you. I want to talk about your loan. I need to see how we can get it back on track. The letter got returned to us, and the owner actually came in and picked the letter up and said, absolutely, Stephen, we will come. We'll talk to you. We'll bring you a payment. We'll try to do that. Since that time, board members have been in to eat. They've talked to the owners. Yep, we're going to come. We're going to talk to you. We're going to see what we can do, with no follow-up after that. I did email everybody. I met with Shannon Proxy, who's the owner, one of the owners, last Monday morning. She reached out to a couple of board members, and they said, hey, go talk to Angie. I sat down with her. She explained to me everything that has been going on in their business life. And I said, Shannon, We have to have something from you, some kind of commitment. What can you do to help us get this back? There was no check. She did not show up with money, but she showed up and said, hey, we've got all this. We really want to get back on track. And I said, great. We will publish the agenda on Friday morning. Here is what I need from you. I need your IRS 941 returns. I need your TWC employer quarterly reports. I need a letter from you explaining everything that's going on in your life. I said, send me an email as soon as you get back to your office, and I will respond so you have all of this in writing. She sent me the email as soon as she got back over to the restaurant, and I have not heard from her again. I followed up on Tuesday, on Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and again Thursday afternoon and said, we are publishing the agenda in the morning. Please send me the letter. Like, that's all I asked for, right? We have a different conversation tonight if we are working on that agreement with them. But I have not heard from her since then. So that's kind of where we are tonight. We really have a couple of options. I would never recommend you just write the debt off, right? I think you have two viable options. We attempt to take them to court, and we use our EDC attorney and his crew to do that. Or for $21,000, we attempt to partner with a collection agency on some kind of contingency basis, right? We have nothing to lose between now and November to let them attempt to collect. They don't have a lot of good luck with businesses, one, that are closed or small businesses, because you can't squeeze blood from a turnip, right? And that's he was just real honest with me, and he said, you could have some issues, but we have that issue no matter which route we take. So the board just has to discuss and make a decision on which route you want to go. From here, that then goes to council to approve that decision, whether it is contingency or forgive the debt or take them to court. So,
Question.
yeah, I will do my best to answer it.
You would do great, I'm sure. It's a simple one. So if we decide to move forward with option 3, you just defined what option 3 is.
Yes.
We don't have to read the whole thing.
You won't want to say option 3 because I don't have them done that way. I think what you will want to say is that you want to make a motion to turn this debt over to a collection agency on a contingency basis. And then what we will do from there is work with that agency. I would like to see us, maybe, I kept throwing around 10 months, right? Let's try 10 months so that in November, December, if we haven't been able to collect, we get our debt back, and then we're able to file the 1099. It would have to come back if for some reason the owners come in, and this is with both loans, you're going to see a bunch of this same information. If for some reason the owner comes in and hands us a $10,000 check and says, hey, will you just settle for this? That then has to come back to the board to have that discussion again. I can't make that decision. The credit agency, the collection agency can't make that decision. It would then have to come back to the board and say, are you willing to refinance? Are you willing to renegotiate? Are you willing to? But the reality is, and I hate this, they have great food. The reality is they are not paying this bill, and this EDC has that outstanding debt that we kind of need to do something with. And we've been patient, and we have, I can tell y'all, since the day I started Stephen I sent him a real sweet letter, right? I was like, let's just try a real sweet letter. And then we sent a letter from the attorney saying, as of today, you are this far behind. You need to tell us how you're gonna fix it. And then we sent the final, we are calling your full loan due. You need to fix it. And we haven't got that hard work reciprocated in our collection efforts.
President Key, may I I was going to ask if I could have a question with Angie. Angie, do you know if they are in default on the lease either here or in Kemp?
I do not know that for a fact.
Do you know if they have filed for a Chapter 11 or 13?
I do not know that, no, ma'am.
And do you know anything about their income at the moment, their
I do not.
financials?
I do not. And that's one of the things I asked her for. I was like, Shannon, tell us your story, right? This is your opportunity to really even come to the meeting and be able to get in front of the board and tell your story and why are you behind and, you know, this is a small enough loan and it's a business that's open that if there was any way we could work with them, I told her, we're happy. I will help you tell that story. Tell me what I can do. But I do not have those details, and there are a lot of rumors, and I would not feel comfortable sharing any of those based on the fact that we don't have something in writing from someone.
I'm going to put it out there that I, for one, would not support filing a lawsuit. I think that that's counterproductive, and I think that would be shooting this board or this city in the head trying to do something like that. Now, I may be wrong. You can, if I am, please share your thoughts with me about that.
Yeah, I think going with the attorneys, as you said, 10,000 on up, it's kind of a lousy gamble on a $20,000 debt.
I would ask, are you throwing good money after bad?
Yeah.
Does
That's what
Roy
I would
need to
ask.
read this
The other
in?
question I have on this, though,
Does Roy need to read this in before we can take an action?
I think he read the item into the record. You could make a
Okay.
motion
I would like
if
to make,
everybody's done discussing. Yeah.
I would like to move that we take action on the loan in default for Slapping Good and send the debt to a collection agency on contingency not to exceed 10 months and move forward after the 10-month date and look at filing the 1099 and hold them in default.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Bond, a second from Ms. Rankin. Any discussion or questions?
yeah. And I don't understand collections, I'll be honest with you, okay? If we give it to the collections agency and it gets close to November when we want it back, okay? And they decide, okay, we'll negotiate it out, we'll let them have it for $2,000. We'll let them out of the whole deal for $2,000. They have that right?
That would have to come back to the board for final approval before we settled.
I'm just clarifying, okay.
Yes.
And can we set a floor that they can't go below to negotiate? Or should we?
Potentially. I didn't have that in-depth of a conversation with these guys. I just called and said, hey, do you do this? And I've worked with you before, and is this something you're interested in? And what is it going to cost me? So I would assume we can set some parameters for them. I suspect they will try to settle, right? They
I do
want to
too.
do that too. But I think that would, they don't own the loan, we do. They're just attempting to collect for us. So any decision on a settlement would have to come back to the board.
The board, okay. Yeah, I mean, basically, I agree with the motion. I just want to know what parameters we have.
And I'll get once we make some decisions, I was doing a lot of hypothetical, so with this company, but once we have some direction forward, then I'll have some additional details and I'll be able to share that with the board.
I fully understand why you're saying you want 10 months, but what we've been dealing with and everything that we've gone through to this point, I wouldn't be averse to saying we give them 6 months.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we let them collect, and they're going to collect or they're not. We may know in 3 months they have had no bite. We're just go ahead and do it. I think you have some options in there about how you move forward with that collection process.
And at that point, we could actually come back and say, okay, 3 months, nothing's happened, let's,
Sure. I don't want to lock y'all into, we're going to do this for 10 months, because there's no reason to continue to chase that trail if, they're 90 days or 120 days in and they're getting no bite, they're getting what we're getting, which is nothing, then we need to go ahead and wrap that up.
what
and
if
we know
I
what's gonna happen.
amend my motion to say up to?
I don't
10
even know,
months.
Keith, if you really.
Or do I
want-
do I need to do
Yeah,
that?
I would make a motion where you don't put a time limit on it, and we
Okay.
relook if they have had any luck in a few months. I mean, at the end of the day, at that point, you're writing it off as bad debt if the EDC is not interested in going the file the.
Okay, so
Lawsuit,
just
right.
leave it open-ended.
Yeah.
So I will amend my motion to take action on the loan default of Slapping Good and turning it over to a collection agency on a contingency of an undetermined amount of time, bringing it back and giving us the option to call it, and then sending it to the 1099 to the IRS as income acquired
Correct.
during the year 2025.
1099C is what it's.
1099C. Okay.
Motion on the floor, you had a second.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. He's amended it. Motion to set aside the first motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motions. One of them needs, you need to make the motion. to set
I'll make a motion to set aside my first motion.
Yeah, you just-
Second. Any questions or
all of it.
everybody vote from my left?
Alexander, yes.
Rankin, yes.
Yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Second motion is on the table. Any seconds?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rankin. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, I'm sorry, but if we don't put a time limit on it, what drives it back to the table? In other words, where does the sign come up and saying, hey, maybe you need to revisit this after 3 months or 4 months?
Well, I think that's what your executive director and your admin do, right?
just asking the
Steven
question
tracks
because-
this, and that's kind of, he kind of keeps a running tally of where we are on all of these. He keeps the loan documents up to date. So at that point, we would have to bring it back to you and say, hey, we're getting no bites. They're not having any luck. We haven't had even any contact. Then you're writing that off as bad debt. That's the next step, so.
Okay, just why not? I'm on a roll. If we give it to them open-ended, the agency has all the time in the world to wrap up the deal in their mind. If we give it to them for 3 months, they know they got to do something in 3 months.
I think you have to, I don't know that it works that way exactly, Gary. I think you have to keep in mind they are investing time and effort in this.
I agree.
So they aren't, no collection agency is just going to say, hey, we'll do it when we want to, right? Because as long as it is in their hands, they're sending letters, they're making phone calls, they have an investment of time. If they don't collect on that, then they've lost money. As much money as we've lost trying to do this, right? We have an investment in this too, outside of their loan dollars, of just my time and Steven's time and the attorney's cost of sending all these letters. So I think you agree to, I think the motion that Keith made, and I'm not sure we had to have a second motion, but the motion that Keith made is to turn this over to the collection agency to attempt to collect the debt. And we do that, and we talk to them about, hey, if you're not getting anything, let us know. They will keep us up to date so that we can then make the decision that we're going to write this off as bad debt. And
I am a little uncomfortable, though, to put it out there and just leave it open-ended. I don't
Well-
think anybody on the board.
well, I think the
But they-
direction I've gotten from you all is we are going to do something by December, so let's
Yeah.
let them have some, so that in 2025, we are filing the 1099.
And they may very well come back to us in 2 to 3 months and say, hey, look, we sent them
They haven't seen all the
something
loan paperwork yet.
every week and we've gotten zero.
Yeah.
We want to
We're
get
done.
rid of it.
Yeah, we're done. Here's your paperwork back. Here's your loan back. Good luck.
Okay, I want to be clear on this for my own edification and for everybody else's. This goes down the road for 3 months. Slap and Good gets tired of getting phone calls. They march into your office and they say, look, we want to amend the contract or we want to pay something. They can't do it, right?
They cannot do it. They are handed
Just asking.
over and to the collection agency. It is now out of our hands and into
Okay,
the collection
just checking.
agency's hand.
Okay,
So
thank
the collection agency would then negotiate with them.
Well, as of the date, the 30 days passed, it's declared in default. I mean, it's already. the
Yeah,
default notice
as
there,
of
so
February 17th, the loan is in default and
It
we
doesn't
are
get,
we are not a
doesn't get
collection
resurrected
agency.
at all unless we choose to resurrect it.
We have spent thousands of dollars attempting to collect these payments.
And if we choose to resurrect it and it's in the hands of the collection agency, unless I misunderstood, do we owe them some money?
We do not, it is contingency. So if they collect, they get paid. If they don't collect, they don't get paid.
And if we resurrect, they don't get paid? Or if we-
Correct.
if
Yeah,
we-
they'll just
just
hand
to
the
make-
loan
I'm not
back to
saying we're
us.
going
Yeah.
to, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
This is a point of order, and to make it clear, Gary, after that's all said and done, when it gets through, the money that we lose, we're going to, we're going to report it to the
I
IRS.
get that I get. I just,
Unless you agree to a settlement at some point. If they
and I want to, that's
go
what I
up
said.
with a tax return and they got $10,000 and they want to settle their $20,000 for $10,000, that would then have to come back to the board to make that decision.
I just wanted to make
If you're
sure.
interested in doing that, and then the collection agency would take their 30% and go on their way.
Okay.
We have the motion on the floor by Mr. Bond. We have the second by Ms. Rankin. No other discussion. Hearing none, vote to my left.
Alexander, yes.
Rankin, yes.
Key, yes?
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Motion carries. We'll move forward with the contingency fee with a collection agency. Item number 9, consider and take action on a loan default of Gun Barrel City Medical. I want to have Dr. Smith give us a presentation on that before we go to a motion.
This one is pretty much, very much the same, so I've answered most of your questions. Tonight's February 11th. We're going to determine next steps at this meeting. On the 17th, their 30-day right to cure expires. On the 25th, council will have this on their agenda to consider and confirm next steps. And I may have a little more information. I couldn't really move forward with the collection agency until I had that direction from you all. Again, here we have 3 suits. Their full amount in default is $50,213. File a lawsuit, forgive the debt, work with the accountant to file a 1099-C, or turn over to a collection agency, contingency-based, and they take 30%. Next slide, please, Stephen. So this one is a little bit different in that they are not a current business in Gun Barrel City. They have made a total of about $48,000 in payments, $49,000. The business is no longer open. The business closed in 2020. They made payments from November of 2016 to November of 2023, but they didn't make steady monthly payments. So it wasn't like on the first of every month we received a payment from them. Because of that, a lot of their payments were doubled. So they would almost pay us $1,000 a month, but they would get 2 or 3 months behind and then try to catch up, and then 2 or 3 months behind and then try to catch up. So we received payments from November of 2016 to November of 2023. This is one of those cases where my really nice letter worked and they showed up with a check. They did make extra payment in some of those months because we didn't receive them like they were supposed to make a payment in February, and in March they showed up and doubled the payment, right? Then they showed up in November of 2023 and made a payment, and then made no payment, no March. They made no payment from November of 2023 to March of 2024. We continued to try to work with them. In March of 2024, they showed up with a $1,000 payment, and we have not heard from them since. So no payment, no contact, no response since March of 2024. In this case, they're slapping good. They are to submit a compliance verification form every year. Their performance agreement calls for 1 compliance verification, and we were unable to find that. It says A, it doesn't call out the number. Some of ours do and some of ours don't. It doesn't appear to have ever been submitted, so there is that. That would have included their IRS 941 returns, the TWC employer quarterly reports. This is a case where it appears their performance agreement used some property as collateral. They sold that property in 2020. Is that correct? I believe it was 2020 they sold that property. At that point, they were in good standing with us. They continued to make payments until November of 2023, every single month after their business had closed. So if it's hard for me to tell if the lien was filed based on the paperwork I have access to. If the lien was filed and they had called us when the property sold, at that point we should have called the loan due, just like we did with Westerfeld and 456, right? I found out he was selling the property. I called and said, dude, you owe me money, right? He's like, whoa, Bulldog. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm going through this with some other businesses we need to collect when you sell the property. And so that is what should have happened. That did not happen. I don't know why. I can't answer that. I wasn't here. Most of you weren't here. But they did continue to make payments. We sent them the nice, hey, please come pay. They made a payment in November of 2023. They didn't. We followed up with them. They did come back and make one, but we have not heard from them. This loan is the same. It has a personal guarantee, just like the loan over there. So them and their heirs are responsible for it, is how the contract is written. And so we have the same 3 options in this case: file a lawsuit against them to collect the money, turn it over to a collection agency with a 30% contingency, or write off the debt.
And they haven't tried to renegotiate the contract?
I have not heard from them since March of 2024, and they didn't ask. They just showed up and gave Stephen, I think at that point I had sent them a letter, And so they didn't want the loan to go into default, so the minute they show up and make a payment, we start the 30 days over again. And I think they were aware that that was going to happen, so they showed up with a payment, and then we started the process again, and Jeff has continued to work with them.
From what I understand, that gets you to either dispel or agree with this loan was made personally to the two people, correct? Are those two people still alive? And it was made to two people.
One of them is yes.
I'm sorry?
One of them is yes, or was the last time we heard from them. But it also ties in their heirs, so it's not just those people. So if something happened to those two people, it carries over to their heirs and successors.
Their estate, yes.
Okay, so piggybacking on his question, the loan was not made to Gun Barrel City Medical with these two personally guaranteeing it? Or?
I don't know that I know that answer right off the top of my head. I would have to pull the full contract, and I don't have that here in front of me.
Okay,
Regardless, it is in those two people and their heirs are responsible for the loan.
Yeah.
I would have to pull the full performance agreement, and I don't know that I know that right off the top of my head.
Okay.
Well, the amount of money that's outstanding here, I'd like to posit is we could still have the attorney and file suit on this and still come out with a judgment, Lynn. Is that something we want to do? That's a question I put before the board.
When was the last time you tried to contact him?
March 2024.
March 2020. So there's been no effort to contact him or letter since?
We have tried to contact, we have had no response.
No response, okay.
Yep.
Now, I
All right.
will tell you that we recently got a new address in Waxahachie. I'm not sure how we got that address, but suddenly I had a Waxahachie address for these folks. And so when the default letters went, they went to the Waxahachie address and they were not returned.
Right. My question, if we take them to court and we win a judgment, what guarantee do we have that they're going to pay?
None. We would just have to file a judgment, Lynn, on their property, renew it every 10 years, and if they try to sell their property, they have to certify that Lynn.
You mean their personal property?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just clarify.
Yeah, their house or whatever.
Okay.
Anything that's held by title or deed. But that would be the only thing that would be available to us. And that'd be an ongoing thing that we have to have a tickler to continue to make sure that our judgment doesn't go stale.
And 30 years from now, when one of the family members decides to sell, we might get our money back.
Maybe.
Okay.
If they sell, when it sells, if we have the judgment on file, and we've got our judgment, Lynn, on file, and it's current, we will get our money back because they won't let whoever's doing the title company will not let it go. It can't pass title.
Well, no, I understand the liens, that you can't
Yeah.
get away from it, but I don't know what the family situation is, if they're even going to be interested in selling. I mean,
I don't know either.
that's.
I don't know what kind of property they own. I don't have any personal information related to
And you
that.
used an initial number of around 10 grand if we on up to use an attorney, correct? For either one of these?
Say that again?
I thought Angie put out an initial number of around 10 grand and our expenses.
And it's a bit
to
of a
20
it's a bit of a guess, right? We will have to. I asked Jeff Moore, who is our EDC attorney, what does it cost us? And he said, Angie, it could cost you $500 and they send you a check.
Okay.
I send a letter, they send you a check. We try to file on them. They just say, hey, we don't want to mess with this. Or it could cost you $25,000 because we drag this out and we try to mediate it and we file it and then it waits and I still have to follow up on it. So that is a bit of a guess in there. He said he expected us to have expenses from $10,000 to $20,000 to collect the debt, to collect the debt.
Is this on their credit report?
I do not know that answer.
We haven't turned anything in.
I want it to be
just-
turned in.
Now, this one wouldn't, if we were to do like we did Slap and Good, we can't send them a 1099-C to claim this as income.
Yes, we
Can we?
could.
Sure you can.
Okay, so we could still send the same message that.
Exactly the same.
We may not be getting any money, but you're not going
no
to get
different.
away with the The IRS has a memory longer than an elephant's.
There is no difference in this loan default and the slap and good loan default.
Okay.
My assumption would be, because what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we have had no contact with them. Either we've tried to initiate or they have initiated for 6 or 8 months now, right?
Well, I mean, we've sent them letters,
them
Gary,
letters,
so
okay.
we've sent them default letters, and those letters have not come back to the attorney. So they are receiving mail,
Okay?
but we have not had a conversation with them since March of 2024.
And I'm just wondering if the attorney would have, after screwing around with it for a month or two, might have a better handle on what our options are in getting the money or what the chances are. Does that make sense?
He's going to continue, he's going to file a lawsuit based on the outstanding debt.
Okay.
He's not going to continue to send letters, right? We've sent letters. We've sent default letters, your default as of this today. We've sent your default as of that today. We have now called the loan due and sent a final default that your loan is due and you are in default and have had no contact from them. So
Okay.
the attorney is not going to try to collect this debt anymore. We're not going to pay him whatever we pay him an hour to try to call this guy all the time. He's going to go file a lawsuit against him for unpaid debt.
Yeah.
And it's going to proceed as such.
Which-
He's not going to try to collect this.
Okay, which is what Keith's motion was.
Lisa might have a better idea of what that looks like. That is not my expertise, but
Not mine either.
Not mine either, so it's,
Well, we don't
look
have a
like you had
motion
more.
yet, but that's the issue that's before us, and I'd
Okay.
like to go ahead and call that to a motion. How do we want to approach this?
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and have our EDC attorney file a lawsuit against GBC Medical for the amount in default of $50,213.
Have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Rankin, a second by Mr. Damiano. Any discussion or questions?
Yes. It seems to me like it should be handled the same way the other one is, where we give it to the collection agency. If they collect anything, great. If not, then we can turn it in the 1099 and they can, fight with the IRS on it. Instead of like the other one where we're throwing good money after bad.
I'll give you-
I'm in agreement. I'd like to agree with Sue, just in the simple fact, I understand we can do the lien. We can get our attorney, we're going to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on a $50,000 note that we might get $30,000 back,
Maybe.
maybe. That we may get it in 5 years by a lien, or we might get it in 25, or we may never get it if the family wants to keep it. Because once they find out there's a lien against it, they may just hand it down from heir to heir. So I kind of say, I don't like writing off loans. This is why we put the new programs into effect to try to get rid of some of these bad loans that we've inherited.
Well, allow me to get this, move it on. We've got a motion and a second on the table. Let's vote on that, and we may need to revisit that with another
Well, it
motion.
was still
Well,
open for discussion.
we can't. We need to have the discussion before we vote on my motion.
Well, you have a motion and a second, so you need to, you've had some discussion, and then you can vote, and it will pass or not, or the person that made the motion can amend the motion prior to you going to a vote.
We haven't voted yet.
Well, I just wanted to address something she said.
Go ahead.
The reason that I was wanting to go ahead with the lawsuit is that there's a potential that this family has some money, and I would like to see us go ahead and get this closed out. And I think the attorney will probably get some discussion going as soon as this is filed. And between the two attorneys, it can probably be worked out within 6 weeks or so. So my goal here is to get this off the books and get as much back as we can. I just wanted to say that.
Can I ask you a question? Is there a reason that you think this family has money?
Because they were continuing to make payments after the death of the lady and after they closed their business. And because they're so far removed from it now, it doesn't draw its priority. But they had money and they are capable of getting money. And so they made a poor financial decision in opening this. They were already financially strapped when they opened it and shouldn't have, but they had money. So for that reason, I say, let's see if we can get this back.
I would never agree to writing it off. That should be not on the table at all. And I don't think anybody here on this board would agree to just writing it off.
I don't consider turning it over to a collection agency on a contingency and filing it as a 1099 income for them is writing it off, in my personal opinion. I don't know these people. I wasn't around. I don't know if they have money.
I was on the
They
council.
may be able to get loans to pay, but are they going to be willing to? Or again,
I think that they might.
but they
Because-
haven't been to us since when? Or we haven't heard from them since when?
March of 2024.
Okay, so almost coming up on a year.
Well, I'm not giving up on getting it.
So
Okay.
what is the impact if they've already closed the estate and the two people are dead? What's our impact then?
It is tied to their heirs as well. So the performance agreement is tied to their heirs, so you have that. I don't want anybody to walk away from this dais hearing 6 weeks and thinking, oh, heck yeah. Nothing happens that quick, right? We aren't going to continue to pay our attorney at several $100s an hour to try to collect this. He's going to file a lawsuit, they're going to get an attorney, and then those two attorneys are going to try to negotiate this out. If it was something other than the full amount, it would come back to you, but I don't want anybody to hear, no thing in the court system works that quick.
We're talking like nine months to a
I don't
year
have
and a
any
half.
idea, but I know it isn't 6 weeks. Everything takes.
Well, I think, though, your attorneys will begin talking, and because it's a small amount, they'll try to get that handled quickly.
That is an assumption, yes.
But we do need to understand that if
Don't
it
have any
goes to
idea.
court and they negotiate a settlement, it's gone. I mean, no 1099s, no, nothing else.
Then we have accepted that amount for that loan, yes.
And then they can keep going from heir to heir to heir.
They could, sure.
Okay, so the letters that we have sent them so far that we are not hearing back on have been sent from our attorney, correct?
Correct.
The only
That's why I'm
difference-
saying, our attorney isn't going to keep trying to mail them and collect this debt for us. He's not a collection agency.
No, and so the next letter that the attorney would send would be a lawsuit.
He would go,
File it and then,
Roy is an attorney, he might have a better idea. I assume he would go and file a
File it.
lawsuit on our behalf as our attorney, and then they would get served papers, which takes a while to happen, so,
and that means they can either, once they can either be served or they can't be served,
correct?
okay, for some reason. And that'll give us a better idea as to where we're at, wouldn't it?
We have reason to believe that we have a current address, but we don't even know that, right? So we're assuming that somebody's getting mail at that address. Somebody got the letter, so, yeah.
Yeah, you're walking down a whole path of screaming worms. It's basically what it boils down to, is if they don't answer, then you get a default judgment, and a default judgment is like going to court. And so, let's go ahead and bring that, we've got the motion on the floor.
The motion is to partner with the attorney to
What's the motion?
file a lawsuit.
The motion was to go ahead and file the lawsuit.
File a lawsuit. That was the motion, and the second was to file a lawsuit.
I'll second.
Okay, vote to my left.
Alexander, no.
Rankin, yes.
Key, yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, no.
Passes.
Motion carries 3-2. We'll move forward with filing suit against these folks. Item number 10. Consider and take action to appraise the remaining EDC property that abuts Gun Barrel City Park. Turn that over to Dr. Smith for presentation.
Absolutely. This is a 56.9 acre tract. Several months ago, this tract was significantly larger and has gotten chopped up over time, I think. But several months ago, you will remember that we surveyed all the sections of property that remained. The 1.44 acres at Luther Lane Extension and Church, the right-of-way of Luther Lane Extension, and this piece of property, which is 56.9 acres, to separate them into separate lots. Because we sold the 1.44 acres to the local dentist At the next council meeting, we will dedicate, I have the right-of-way dedication that this board approved. We will dedicate the Luther Lane, the right-of-way along Luther Lane to the city as right-of-way. And so this piece of property is located and abuts Gun Barrel City Park. It is behind it, so if you were involved in our haunted trail, this is where that happened. And on this piece of property is where that happened. We have a party that is potentially interested, but before I spent the additional money to have it appraised, I think it is important that this board decides, are you ready and willing to sell it if I have it appraised? It's gonna cost us another $2,000 to have it appraised. I don't wanna have it appraised unless you're ready to have that conversation with a buyer about selling it, because the property prices do this, right? So there's no reason to appraise it now and nobody be ready to do that. So we did have that conversation. I know this one was a hot topic for some folks. For Ms. Rankin, I have included our master thoroughfare plan picture. She and I spent a significant amount of time this morning talking about ETJ and roads and the whole 9 yards. This is a large piece of property. It is not necessarily right off a main strip, but I will tell you that our abutting cities are putting in roads. They have a school very close. But it is also right behind the park. And so, as you all know, we don't have a property tax, so got to think about what do you want this property to be used for long-term that the EDC owns. So we might have a potential buyer, I will tell you that. He is very anxious. We have no idea what it will appraise for. We would try to sell it to him for what it appraised for. But before I go and have that appraisal done, I need this board to have a discussion of whether or not you're really ready to sell it, because I believe there are a few folks that are very passionate about why we wouldn't. So I will allow you to have that conversation.
What's the buyer want to do with it?
I'm sorry,
What does the potential buyer want to do with it?
housing. It would be a housing development.
Yeah, my personal feeling, and I know you're smiling because we've had this discussion, is that we have a new Parks Board that's about a year old. This is land that we could use to help expand the park in the future. Right now, it gets used maybe once a year, but it is highly used for the Halloween hayride. And if you didn't go to the one last year, even just using it that one time was well worth it and could be continued. To put a development there, abutting up to our park, I just think that we really need to think about, we're not in a hurry. We don't need the money. This property could be developed into other factions of our park. There's been talk about a bicycle trail, an off-road like mountain bike. It wouldn't be a strenuous one. But there's so many things that this area could be other than housing.
Entertainment space, a company I met with this week said, hey, there's these folks that are out looking for entertainment space all over the country, varied entertainment space, indoor, outdoor, it's close to a park. That is another option where you might have a sales tax potential in a space like that.
And again, I'm looking at what's the city going to benefit from more housing? Is it going to be in the city, or is it in the ETJ?
My understanding, and Mr. Packer isn't here, and I don't want to speak for him, but my understanding is he owns several of those lots surrounding this lot, and this would just be one piece. He and I have had some preliminary discussions about his neighborhood and the growth back there in that area, and the city would almost demand that he build the road that goes behind the park. And I've shared that with him, right? That would be kind of a no-go for us if we didn't have access to the back of the park, to the back of you can think about it now, it's like a gravel road that goes to the back of the amphitheater. And so he has shown an interest in participating in that or constructing that road. But again, you all have to have the conversation if you're ready to sell.
That road would tie into Luther Lane.
Yes, sir.
And
Luther Lane Extension, Cross Church Street, Luther Lane Extension down there.
then that traffic would flow on to 334, which is right down from Municipal. And again, just my personal opinion, and I know we need growth, we need housing, but I think there's other areas in Gun Barrel other than our park area that we can find these locations.
One of the
Our
things is
our
that,
park is going to be our showcase.
one of the things, since it butts up against the park, you mentioned a company that does outdoor entertainment stuff. You know, that would be a good addition to the park. What
Not,
about it?
again, I have no commitment.
saying.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
Conceptually, that would be a good addition to back up against the park. That would enhance parking.
As a devil's advocate, could we put a caveat on the sales that if you want to, we'll sell you this property, but you've got to agree to bring the other portions out of the ETJ into the city?
Potentially, some of it's in City of Maybank. They own a pretty significant piece, I believe, I don't know for a fact, I believe they own a significant number of lots above us and around us. So, I don't know that for a fact. That's what I believe to be true, based on preliminary, we've had very preliminary conversations. But, I mean, again, at the end of the day, the real question is that what you want to use the property for? And are you wanting to appraise it to see what it's worth? You know,
From my point of view, I'm of the mindset that we hold on to it because I am of the mindset I want to have the major thoroughfare for east-west going through that area. We used to think that we could run a road just to the north of Bar H and on this back side of the park and run it over from 334 to Walmart, and that would open up another commercial road in our city for us. Right now, we know we can't build the road. We know the ETJ is hectic in legislation, but at the same token, we don't have to sell it now, and we already have about 1,000 rooftops coming in if all of our residential developers were to finish developing. So we don't need rooftops, so there's not a rush. And I would just rather us wait until we know what council and some of the future needs are.
Just to kind of dovetail with that, I don't think the city needs, we don't need rooftops. We need affordable apartments
Yes.
for people who live out here. I don't mean
and
Section
we're
8.
working with a developer that's doing some affordable housing. They're not apartments.
I'm talking
Are,
apartments.
but yeah, I mean, they've just annexed property in, and, you know, there is some of that going on. Again, that doesn't, it provides housing, it doesn't contribute to your sales tax base, and that's one of the challenges of here, but, yeah.
We're not
And I'm
talk-
thinking
we're not
affordable
talking about
housing is
Section 8
like
housing.
coming in at $250. You know, that's not affordable to a lot of folks. And if we're going to get a workforce out here, we need affordable apartments. That's my thing.
There's a difference between workforce housing and Section 8 housing, so I just want to make sure that we're going to, that we're not discussing Section 8. Okay.
But
Do we have a motion with regard to this this parcel of property?
I'd make a motion that we do not take action to appraise the remaining EDC property that abuts Gun Barrel City Park at this time.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Bond and a second from Mr. Damiano. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote from my left.
Alexander, yes.
Rankin, yes?
Key, yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Motion passes. We'll just hang on to the property.
Direction received.
Thank you.
Item number 11, consider and take action to approve the First Amendment to the amended and restated performance agreement for Pier 334, updating all necessary certificate of occupancy and reporting dates and quantity of reports.
So as the EDC board knows, this was discussed at our last council meeting, and council made a motion and approved us looking at the dates in our performance agreement with Pier 334. At the time, council did have a draft of what you have tonight. That is a red line copy. There are still a few things we have to hash out with signatures. It has Roy as a notary, and Roy is not a notary, but we needed to get this through this phase, and then we will get those names updated. Stephen is actually our notary. So there are a couple of things that this first amendment to the amended and restated performance agreement, that's a mouthful, address. The first thing that it addresses is the term of the agreement. The agreement, Mr. Haynes and I have both gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. Both of our attorneys have been through it to make sure we're not missing any additional dates. The term of the agreement should have been updated in the last update when we added the property and moved the CO date for the hotel and the parking to extend the agreement a little longer just due to the time we have spent trying to get everything done and get his plan development zoning approved. So this gives us an additional year on our agreement. It starts in 2022. It ends in 2052. It is a 30-year contract. Which gives us a few more years to get the bang for your buck and to get the reports that you need. It updates the certificate of occupancy date for the retail restaurant. It changes that to December the 31st, 2026 instead of March 31st, 2025. The change of this is a direct result of the change of the hotel CO, and the parking rendered him unable. He has to have 125 parking spaces to get his CO for the restaurant retail, and he will not have that because we bumped the parking back. I believe that probably should have been discussed and changed when we updated the agreement. It got missed, so this amendment fixes that. It also updates the dates of the job creation and retention reporting in line with when the hotel will get their CO and when the retail will get their CO. We had job creation and retention reporting due prior to the December 31st date of the hotel getting its CO. And so this fixes some of those dates as well, as you can see in the copy that you have. And then it updates the number of compliance reports and changes it to 26 instead of 28. At 28 reports, he had 3 reports. You don't start those reports until you have jobs, and he would have had 3 reports due after his contract ended. So we just brought those number of reports in line with when the contract would end.
So am I understanding that he believes he'll have retail and hotel done by 26, into 26?
He will have to have, based on this, he will have to have certificate of occupancy for both the hotel and the retail on December the 31st, 2026.
And he thinks he can do that?
Mr. Haynes has seen, I can't answer for him, Mr. Haynes has seen this amendment, and his attorney has seen the amendment as well.
Well, I'd like to move that we take action to approve the first amendment to the amended and restated performance agreement for Pier 334, updating all necessary certificate of occupancies and reporting dates and quantities of reports.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Bond, second by Mr. Damiano. Any further discussion or questions?
On the signature page, we'll need to change secretary to Gary Damiano.
We will update those signatures on the signature page. We were going back and forth about who the appropriate notarizer, who had the notarization, who could notarize it. So we'll get that updated.
Okay.
That is what you have in your packet is a red line draft. I will have our attorney, I'm not going to amend any of that. I will have our attorney make the final amendments, and then Mr. Key, as president, will sign it. We'll have everybody that needs to sign it, and it will go to City Council as a fully executed document for their approval as well,
As the First Amendment,
as the first amendment to the amended and restated performance.
not the second.
You want to take a vote?
No other further questions, no further discussion? Hearing none, take a vote from my left.
Alexander, yes?
Rankin, yes.
Key, yes.
Damiano, yes.
Matthews, yes.
Bond, yes.
Matter passes, and we'll send this on, as it is stated now, after we get all the red lines taken care of, to the city council for their next meeting, correct? Now then, item number 12, Business Retention and Expansion Small Business Report. And I can report from that we've made several visits. I've misplaced my little sheet on that. But we've made several visits to different locations. Keith and, there it is. They went to, Sue and Keith went to Eagle Auto Parts, and I'll let you talk about that as well, if you want to go ahead and take that on.
I covered that last month.
All right, well, and I met with Lake Jackson Seafood, and during that meeting, I met with an audio-visual artificial intelligence company that's looking to move their corporate headquarters here to Gun Barrel City. They were there while I was talking with Lake Jackson Seafood, and met with a company that is currently looking for a location here in Gun Barrel. That's a concrete. It's called Family-Owned Construction. Any other questions or statements? Item number 13, discuss the business retention expansion large business.
I have had a meeting with Angie to discuss how we might want to go about meeting with our larger companies. My first thought was, let's meet with the private companies that are large enough, having, let's say, 15 or more employees, and not the franchise or box stores, so that we could see what our local employers needed. But then I thought about it, and I'm thinking now that if we get the tax book that Angie gets from the Texas Comptrollers, and we see what are our most potential businesses that can grow, that can actually expand, maybe that's where I need to build a relationship first and start just getting to know their business. What are they importing into our city at the most? And if we know what they're importing, maybe we can bring those importers to put a business here to support our current businesses. So I'm looking at expansion, but I've got to build a relationship, and so I want to be very strategic with who I build that with. So that's where I'm coming from.
And I guess also it's important to note that we've got our first request for a loan. We're going to be looking at that this Thursday evening, 5:30. That's exciting.
Nice.
Any further questions or discussion? Having to hear from Mr. Damiano and the Events and Festival Committee.
Okay, Lisa and I met about 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Had a good discussion, came up with a couple of questions about promotions, promoting events, who is responsible, how to best get it done. Those were Angie questions. We've got the answers to some of those now. One of the questions we had was on funding. And if an entity wants to fund a program, they can come to the city for heads and beds or hotel and motel funds, or they can come to the EDC for money too. They have both options. If it's something that, say, Lisa and I concept and want to put on, and we partner with somebody or figure out how to do that, if it's something that needs to come to the EDC for funding, we'll bring it to the EDC. If it's something that needs to go to the city for funding, we'll bring it to the city for funding. So we're ready to go. We'll probably meet in the next week or two and start brainstorming. You agree?
Exactly.
You okay?
I'm good.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions? I now call for any objections to adjournment.
Make a
Hearing no objections, we are adjourned at 7:11 p.m. Thank you.